You buying canned tuna is quick, cheap, high in protein, and for many people it's almost a habit. But some tins carry risks you can't smell, can't taste, and can't spot with a quick glance. That's why in this video, I'm going straight into 8 canned tuna brands in the UK you should avoid or at least check very carefully, especially if you come across them as imports or when shopping online. I'll also wrap up with 2 safer options so you can keep the convenience without gambling with your health. Because in the world of canned food, the biggest concern isn't a nice label or a clean slogan. It's the process, the compliance track record, and how transparent the manufacturer really is. And if you've already bought any of these 8 products, there's no need to panic. In each section, I'll share practical notes and simple tips to help you assess the situation and choose a safer way forward. 8. Good and Gather. Good and Gather is one of those tins that sells calm before it sells tuna. The label is clean, the design is minimalist, the name sounds gentle and sensible. It feels like the kind of private label product you throw into the trolley on a busy evening when there is no time to overthink. It looks like quiet competence in a can. Nothing flashy, nothing aggressive, just good enough food for good enough days. Then the story shifts. The real concern with Good and Gather is not a dramatic headline or a massive recall everyone remembers. The concern is quieter and in some ways more unsettling. How little the shopper is actually told. The label does not clearly spell out which species of tuna is inside, where it was caught, or what recognizable standards it claims to meet. There is no easy trail of public testing data to check while standing in the aisle. It is a product that looks reassuring, while keeping the most important details at arm's length. That lack of clarity has a cost. When a tin is vague, doubt does not stop at that single tin. It spreads to the whole category. The canned aisle stops feeling like a safe shortcut and turns into a small trust exercise. Every time the word quality appears on a label, a small part of the brain now asks, quality by whose definition? Instead of feeling protected by the supermarket's own brand, many shoppers feel as if the responsibility has been quietly pushed back onto them. So here is a simple rule that protects far more than one purchase. If a tuna label will not tell you clearly what species it contains, where it was sourced, and what credible certifications or standards it relies on, treat that product as low trust. A brand does not have to be fancy, but it does have to be specific. When a tin is opened and the smell is oddly sharp, the liquid cloudy, the fish collapsing into wet mush, there is no prize for finishing it just because money was spent. A human body is not a dustbin for mystery ingredients. Store brands can absolutely be a smart choice, but only when they are willing to answer basic questions. A quick message to customer service about sourcing and testing can be very revealing. If the reply is vague, evasive, or just copy and paste fluff, that is already useful information. Caution is not paranoia. It is the thin line that stops convenience turning into regret. And if a brand cannot clearly explain what is inside the can, it does not deserve a permanent spot in anyone's weekly shop. 7. Bumblebee. Bumblebee is the kind of name that feels like an old supermarket friend. It carries that practical, no-nonsense vibe, the brand you might have reached for during tighter months when dinner needed to be cheap, quick, and reliable. The packaging does not try to be a luxury statement. It leans into familiarity, the quiet promise that this is the dependable tin that has always been there, a simple protein shortcut that will not let you down. But the disappointment here is not a single explosive scandal. It is something more ordinary and therefore more dangerous to long-term trust. Inconsistency. In some recent taste tests, testers noted that Bumblebee's texture can lean towards shredded and slightly mushy, making it less impressive next to higher-ranked options. Instead of that satisfying, firm flake people expect from a classic tin, the experience can feel soft, flat, and a bit forgettable. That might sound minor on paper, but in a category built on routine and habit, small disappointments add up quickly. This is where the emotional sting lands. A brand like this is not just food, it is memory. It is the tuna sandwich packed without thinking, The quick pasta bowl after a long day, the "we will make it work" meal when budgets were tight. So when the quality starts to wobble, it does not just change dinner, it changes the meaning attached to the logo. The uncomfortable question creeps in: is loyalty being given to a product that still earns it, or to a version of the brand that existed years ago? The practical response does not need drama. It needs simple checks. The ingredient list should stay straightforward. The drained weight should feel worth the price. When a tin is opened and most of what pours away is liquid, leaving behind thin, soft strands that barely hold shape, the value equation starts to break. That is usually the moment to pause and compare with alternatives rather than buying on autopilot. Brands evolve, ownership changes, supply chains shift, and cost-cutting can quietly reshape what ends up in the can. The healthiest habit is not blind loyalty or instant outrage. The healthiest habit is selective trust. If Bumblebee still delivers a solid 10 for some shoppers, fair enough. But if the experience keeps feeling lighter, wetter, and less satisfying than expected, the smartest move is simple: let the trolley vote. If you've tried it, please share your thoughts in the comments so more people can know. I believe everyone has the right to be informed and to make the best choices for their family. And this is only the quality chapter. The next brand pulls the story into a more irritating kind of betrayal, where quality and consumer respect both start to feel questionable. 6. StarKist. StarKist is the kind of brand that feels baked into everyday life. It is the national tuna idea in a single tin, easy to find, easy to eat, and tied to quick lunches across generations. The label sells familiarity more than flair. The unspoken promise is simple: this is the safe, standard choice, the one you can grab without a second thought when the sandwich queue is long and the week is even longer. But this is where the old comfort starts to wobble. StarKist is mentioned not just because of consumer grumbles, but because trust took a formal hit years ago. The U.S. Department of Justice announced that StarKist agreed to plead guilty for its role in a conspiracy to fix prices of packaged seafood sold in the United States. That history matters even for UK viewers, because global brands do not keep their reputations neatly separated by borders. When a household name is linked to price fixing, the doubt is not only about what is inside the tin, it is about how the company behaves when it thinks shoppers are not looking. A later wave of civil litigation and settlements kept that uncomfortable narrative alive. Then comes the everyday layer, the part that hits the kitchen rather than the courtroom. Recent taste tests have not always placed StarKist among the most impressive options. Some reviewers described a softer, more shredded consistency and a less appealing flavor compared with higher-ranked choices. All recipes plus one. On its own, that might sound like a minor foodie complaint, but paired with a past that already bruised trust, it becomes a pattern many shoppers find hard to ignore. This is why the emotional damage feels sharper than a normal bad tin. A brand that was once safe because it was familiar becomes a brand that demands scrutiny. The loyalty question quietly flips. Instead of why switch, it becomes why stay. The practical defense is refreshingly ordinary. Pay attention to smell. Tuna should be lightly fishy, not sharply sour, harshly metallic, or oddly unpleasant. Watch the texture. A good tin should have a clean flake and decent structure. If the meat feels overly mushy, too broken down, or suspiciously gritty, it is reasonable to stop. And keep an eye on the relationship between price and experience. If costs climb while quality keeps sliding, do not talk yourself into thinking you are just being picky. Switch to a brand that still earns your trust at the fork, not just on the label. If StarKist is the story of an aging legacy losing its footing, the next brand pushes the irritation further into a more unsettling suspicion. Paying for chunk tuna while wondering whether the can is really giving you 100% tuna. 5. Chicken of the sea. Chunk tuna is a clever little promise. It suggests clean, firm pieces of real fish, the kind of texture that makes a quick sandwich feel honest. Chicken of the sea leans into that expectation. The label creates the impression of a straightforward buy. Proper tuna, properly packed, with nothing to worry about beyond whether to choose water or oil. But the uncomfortable part of this story sits in the brand's track record. Chicken of the Sea has been linked to recalls in the past. Tri-Union Seafoods voluntarily recalled a limited amount of 12-ounce chunk light tuna in water after concerns the product may contain metal pieces from broken production equipment, a physical contamination risk that can be dangerous if consumed. The company also issued a broader recall of 5-ounce chunk light tuna in water and in oil due to deviations in the commercial sterilization process, raising concerns about potential contamination, even though no illnesses were reported at the time. These incidents may be historical and largely tied to U.S. distribution, but the psychological impact travels well. When a brand has had to pull products for metal fragments or sterilization concerns, the label chunk stops feeling like a texture guarantee and starts feeling like a marketing comfort blanket. Add the ongoing consumer chatter about watery tins, soft flakes, and salt levels that can feel on the heavy side, and the trust equation gets messy fast. This is the kind of doubt that makes shoppers feel they have lost control. It is not just about the fear of a disappointing lunch, it is the suspicion that the word chunk can be stretched until it means whatever the brand needs it to mean that week. The moment that suspicion arrives, the aisle stops being convenient and starts demanding attention. The fix is simple, not dramatic. Look for tins that clearly name a species such as skipjack, albacore, or yellowfin rather than vague tuna labeling. Check the drained weight so the price is paying for fish, not mostly liquid. Scan the ingredients and be wary of unnecessarily long or fuzzy descriptions. And if salt sensitivity is a concern or tuna appears in the weekly routine more than occasionally, it is sensible to be stricter with this brand category and prioritize products that feel consistent, specific, and transparent. And if this kind of label stretching already feels irritating, the next names on this list introduce a more unsettling fear, because the risk is tied to problems that the senses may not reliably catch at first glance. 4. Trader Joe's Trader. Joe's carries the kind of halo most brands would pay a fortune for. The vibe is clean, modern, quietly health-conscious. It is the name that makes shoppers feel they can relax a little, as if good taste and good standards come pre-packed with the logo. When a can looks tidy, premium, and wholesome-ish, the brain often does the rest of the work. This must be safe, this must be better, this must be one of the good ones. Then February 2025 happened, and that comforting autopilot took a hit. Tri-Union Seafoods voluntarily recalled select lots of canned tuna sold under several labels, including Geneva, Van Camp's, H-E-B, and Trader Joe's, after a supplier flagged a manufacturing defect in easy-open pull-tab lids that could compromise the seal over time. The concern was potential contamination with Clostridium botulinum, the bacterium that can cause botulism, and consumers were warned not to use affected products even if they looked or smelled normal. The story made headlines precisely because it was not a niche brand problem. It was a system problem. A single packaging fault had the power to travel across multiple labels and land inside some of the most trusted baskets. That is the psychological sting. A neat, well-loved image does not create invincibility. A brand can be careful with its identity and still be vulnerable to the weak link in a shared supply chain. For UK viewers, the point is not to assume this exact product line sits in every local supermarket. The point is to understand the pattern. When a brand operates within a wider manufacturing ecosystem, the safety story is sometimes bigger than the logo on the front. The sensible response is not panic, it is conditional trust. With any high-reputation chain, checking the retailer's recall page once in a while is a small habit with outsized protection. Keeping receipts or using an app for purchase history turns a vague worry into a clear yes or no answer if a safety alert ever appears. Most importantly, our organic or premium should never be treated as a guarantee of zero risk. Food safety is a process discipline, not a packaging aesthetic. So Trader Joe's belongs here as a reminder that even the good brands can slip when the system does. But this is only the surface. Following the thread leads to a more worrying link, because the next name in this countdown is not just a brand on the shelf. It is one of the motors behind several of them. 3. Van Camp's has the quiet confidence of a bargain that never needed a long sales pitch. It looks cheap, familiar, almost stubbornly ordinary. The kind of tin you might have bought in leaner weeks because it felt safe, precisely because it was boring. No wellness buzzwords, no glossy lifestyle claims, just a straightforward promise of quick protein at a price that does not bite back. In a world of over-designed premium food, this is the tin that seems too plain to be risky. That is exactly why the next part lands so hard. Van Camp's was included in a voluntary recall announced by Tri-Union Seafoods in February 2025. The company recalled select lots of canned tuna sold under several labels, including Van Camp's, after a supplier flagged a manufacturing defect in easy-open pull-tab lids that could compromise the seal over time. The concern was potential contamination with Clostridium botulinum, the bacterium associated with botulism. Consumers were advised not to use the recalled products even if the cans looked or smelled normal. This is the kind of risk that messes with a shopper's instincts. People are trained to trust visible warning signs, bulging lids, leaks, funky smells. But a faulty seal can be a silent problem. The tin can sit there looking perfectly polite while the safety story underneath has already changed. Even for UK viewers who might only come across this brand through imports or online listings, the lesson travels. The danger is not just a name, the danger is a category of packaging failure that can jump across labels in the same production network. So the most useful response is not fear, it is a sharper routine. Any easy-open tuna can with a loose-feeling ring, a dented rim, or a lid that flexes strangely under light pressure deserves suspicion. Storage habits matter too. Keeping tins away from heat, sunlit cupboards, or the top of a warm kitchen unit reduces stress on seals over time. And if a product line has been tied to a major recall, the smartest move is to stay cautious for longer than one shopping trip. Trust should be rebuilt with clear evidence of improved processes or updated packaging, not just with time. This is the point in the countdown where the tone gets more serious, because the most unsettling threats are not always the ones that look dangerous. They are the ones that look harmless. And the next brand is a more expensive, more polished version of the same uneasy worry. 2. Geneva. Geneva is the kind of can that looks like it belongs in a grown-up kitchen. Yellowfin olive oil, a label that quietly whispers clean eating without trying too hard. It carries that premium calm, the sort of product that makes a quick lunch feel a little more responsible, a little more polished. In a crowded tuna aisle, this is the can that seems to promise not just protein, but taste, care, and a touch of adult good judgment. And then the recall story cuts through that image. In February 2025, Tri-Union Seafoods announced a voluntary recall of select lots of canned tuna sold under multiple labels, including Geneva. The recall followed a supplier notification that certain easy-open pull-tab lids had a manufacturing defect that may compromise the integrity of the product seal over time. The risk was that cans could leak or, in a worst-case scenario, be contaminated with Clostridium botulinum, the bacterium associated with botulism. The FDA published the announcement and warned consumers not to use affected products even if the cans did not look or smell spoiled. No illnesses were reported at the time of the announcement. This is where the trust injury feels deeper than a normal brand disappointment. A premium aesthetic usually buys a sense of safety in the shopper's mind. Olive oil, yellowfin, tidy design, the familiar comfort of "this is the better option." But a packaging fault is the great equalizer. It does not care how tasteful the label looks. It turns the meaning of premium upside down, because the most dangerous version of this risk can be the one that shows no obvious warning signs. So the value in this segment is not just naming the brand. It is teaching the response. If a Geneva can is sitting in the cupboard, the safest approach is a calm three-step check. First, match the product details, including flavor, best before dates, and codes, stamped on the bottom against the official recall notice. Second, if the can matches a recalled lot or shows any red flags like bulging, leaking, heavy rust, or a loose lid, do not open it and do not taste to confirm. Follow the return or disposal guidance linked to the recall. Third, if someone has already eaten from a recalled product and unusual neurological symptoms appear, urgent medical advice is the correct next step. Genova belongs at number 2 because it breaks a seductive illusion. A premium feel is not a safety system, and the next name in this countdown shifts the whole story up a level because it is not just a label on the front, it is the engine behind several labels on the shelf. 1. Try Union Seafoods. This is the moment the countdown stops being about a single logo and becomes about the machinery behind the shelf. Because sometimes the choice is not really between brands. Sometimes it is between different outfits worn by the same producer. The front label changes, the color palette changes, the marketing tone shifts, but the system underneath can be far more connected than most shoppers realize. Try Union Seafoods lands at number 1 for exactly that reason. In February 2025, the company announced a voluntary recall of select lots of canned tuna sold under multiple labels, including Geneva, Van Camp's, H-E-B, and Trader Joe's. The recall followed a supplier warning that certain easy open pull tab lids had a manufacturing defect that may compromise the seal over time, potentially causing leakage or, in a worst-case scenario, contamination with Clostridium botulinum, the bacterium linked to botulism. The FDA published the announcement and warned consumers not to use affected products even if the cans did not look or smell spoiled. Mainstream reporting emphasized how wide the retail footprint was across major U.S. chains, reinforcing the uncomfortable truth that this was a system-level packaging issue rather than a niche brand slip. For UK viewers, the value of this story is not about assuming every one of these labels sits in the local aisle. The value is understanding the pattern. A shared manufacturing pipeline means a single technical weak point can travel across multiple brand identities. That realization shifts the fear from "is this brand okay?" to "who is actually behind this can and what is their recent track record?" The smartest response is a mindset upgrade. When a manufacturer repeatedly appears in recall stories, avoiding one label is not enough. The back of the can becomes just as important as the front. Tiny distributor names, factory hints, or production codes can provide clues about who is really responsible. If several different labels trace back to the same source, that producer's safety history deserves closer attention. Brands that clearly state species, catch areas, recognize standards, and accessible recall information are the ones that earn long-term trust. Silence is not proof of danger, but it is a reason to pause. This is why Tri-Union is the real plot twist of the list. It breaks the comforting illusion that brand variety always equals safety variety. After all these lessons about packaging, habits, and trust, the fairest question is obvious. So which tuna varieties are actually the safest, most reliable picks for everyday eating? 1. Waitrose. After a countdown full of cracked trust and packaging anxiety, it is fair to want a can that feels like a reset button. And this is where Waitrose's own brand MSC Tuna quietly earns its place as a safer, more sensible pick. The front of the tin does not shout, but the message underneath is unusually clear for a category that often hides behind vague labels. Waitrose highlights that its own label canned tuna is MSC certified and responsibly caught using pole and line methods. That single line is doing a lot of heavy lifting. It tells shoppers there is a recognized third-party standard involved, and it points to a fishing method that many consumers associate with more selective practices and a stronger responsibility signal. It is not marketing magic. It is a quiet attempt to make the sourcing story readable even to someone scanning the aisle with 5 minutes and a shopping list. What makes this feel more than just a nice logo is that Waitrose also frames tuna sourcing as part of a wider responsible seafood commitment, including statements about its tuna supply being MSC certified and working with approved suppliers under verified standards. That helps the trust story feel less like a one-off claim and more like a policy direction. In a video about consumer protection, that distinction matters. A good can is great. A consistent system is better. Then comes the part that shoppers care about most once the lid actually comes off. The essential MSC tuna range on Waitrose's own site receives strong consumer ratings, and the reviews repeatedly praise the real chunk texture and easy everyday use for salads and sandwiches. The tone of those comments is not dramatic. It is reassuringly boring. People buy it, it behaves as expected, and they come back for it. That is exactly what reliability looks like in a low-drama pantry staple. The simplest way to say it is this: this is not a perfect world guarantee, but it is a can that gives shoppers more of what they deserve. Clearer sourcing signals, recognizable standards, and a user experience that seems stable enough to build routine around. After all the chaos of the earlier brands, that kind of calm is not just comforting, it is earned. 2. John West. After a list full of brand illusions and system-level recalls, John West works well as a more grounded, safe pick for UK shoppers with one important condition. Choose the tins that clearly carry the MSC logo, and you will be playing a smarter game. The reason is simple. John West is not trying to win trust with vague reassurance. It is leaning into traceability and giving shoppers an actual tool to verify the story behind the can. The brand's Trace Your Can platform invites consumers to enter a code and track the product's journey, which signals a willingness to be checked rather than just believed. That matters because the tuna aisle is not short on confident claims. What it lacks is proof you can get to quickly without needing a degree or a detective agency. When a mainstream brand makes traceability part of the customer experience, it shifts the narrative from trust the label to verify the label. For a consumer protection style video, that is a strong, practical point the audience can use immediately. The second reason John West fits here is the no-drain eco-twist range. Public statements around this line say that John West's no-drain eco-twist products are already MSC certified, with broader sustainability ambitions tied to expanding that standard across more of the range. Retail descriptions for specific no-drain items in UK supermarkets also explicitly reference MSC-certified fisheries. The safest way to phrase the takeaway is clean and legally tidy. Do not assume every John West product is the same. Prioritize the SKUs that show the MSC mark on pack. And then there is the everyday experience, which is where safe either becomes real or collapses. No Drain has built a loyal following in UK retail because it removes the mess without sacrificing the sense of proper tuna pieces. Shoppers commonly praise the convenience and the chunkier feel compared with watery alternatives, and retailer listings show strong ratings for several no-drain variants. That is the quiet kind of evidence that makes a routine feel stable. So the argument is not that John West is perfect. The argument is that John West, when chosen correctly, gives shoppers what the earlier brands failed to: clearer verification signals, a recognizable third-party standard, and a daily use format that people seem genuinely happy to buy again. In a category where trust can feel like a gamble, that combination is about as close as most households need to get to peace of mind. Today isn't just about 8 names to avoid. It's about relearning how to trust food with your eyes open. A can that looks healthy, a premium, or comfortably familiar is not automatically on your side. The real safety story lives in boring details: the condition of the tin, the clarity of the label, and whether the brand is willing to be specific about species, sourcing, and standards. From this point on, the SMART routine is simple. Check for dents, bulging, leaks, or rust. Read the label like someone who knows marketing can be a costume. Prioritize brands that explain what's inside the can and where it comes from, rather than asking you to trust a mood. Which name on this list surprised you most? And have you ever opened a perfect-looking tin that tasted quietly wrong? If you want more UK food investigations like this, drop the next product you want unpacked in the comments.